In March of 1927, the most technologically advanced aerial expedition ever assembled vanished without a trace into the Arctic darkness. 12 men, one revolutionary airship, and a device so powerful, its loss was considered a matter of national security. What disappeared that night wasn't just a crew of explorers. It was the culmination of a decade of engineering ambition, millions in investment, and technology that wouldn't be rediscovered for another 50 years. This is the story of the Obsidian Expedition, and to this day, despite a century of searching, technological analysis, and international investigation, no one can definitively explain where they went, what happened in those final moments, or why the last signal they transmitted continues to repeat across radio frequencies even now. The R-47 Obsidian was a marvel of 1920s engineering. At 732 feet in length, it dwarfed even the famous Graf Zeppelin. Its rigid aluminum frame housed 16 hydrogen cells, 3 powerful Maybach engines, and luxury accommodations designed for extended Arctic operations. But its true purpose was far more secretive. Concealed in a reinforced chamber deep within the airship's gondola was Device 17, an experimental navigational system unlike anything the world had seen. Developed in absolute secrecy by a joint Anglo-American research team, it allegedly used electromagnetic resonance to calculate position with unprecedented accuracy, even in polar regions where compasses failed. The mission plan was ambitious but straightforward. Launch from Svalbard, Norway. Fly north across the polar ice cap. Map uncharted magnetic anomalies. Test Device 17 under the most extreme conditions imaginable. And return as heroes, having revolutionized polar navigation forever. They never returned. Commander Robert Ashford, a decorated Royal Navy officer. Dr. Wilhelm Strauss, the German physicist who designed Device 17. 8 experienced airship crew members. 2 American military observers. All selected for their expertise, their discretion, and their willingness to risk everything for scientific advancement. All lost. Device 17 was revolutionary. According to declassified fragments of its technical specifications, it didn't merely measure the Earth's magnetic field, it interacted with it. Using a series of precisely wound copper coils and a core of refined magnetite, it could allegedly generate a localized electromagnetic field, creating a reference point even when traditional instruments failed. But there were concerns. During testing, the device generated unexplained power fluctuations. Nearby instruments malfunctioned. One engineer reported that standing too close induced severe vertigo. The lead physicist noted in his journal, "We don't fully understand what we've created. We only know that it works." On March 15, 1927, under overcast skies and with unusual government oversight, the Obsidian lifted off from Longyearbyen. International observers noted the expedition's unusual security measures. The crew was forbidden from discussing Device 17. Their radio transmissions would be encrypted, and their exact route remained classified until departure. Thousands watched as the silver giant ascended, its engines roaring against the Arctic wind. Newsreels captured the moment. Headlines proclaimed it the conquest of the impossible North. Within 72 hours, those same newspapers would be reporting something far more grim. The Obsidian had gone silent. For the first 48 hours, everything proceeded normally. Regular radio checks, successful Device 17 calibrations. The crew reported spectacular views of the polar ice. Commander Ashford transmitted, "Conditions optimal, morale excellent, device performing beyond expectations." It would be one of the last coherent messages they sent. March 17th, meteorological conditions deteriorated rapidly. A polar cyclone, unpredicted by contemporary forecasting methods, swept across their flight path. The Obsidian's transmissions became sporadic. References to unusual electromagnetic readings appeared in fragments of decoded messages. Then came the transmission that changed everything. The 21:47 GMT. The Obsidian's radio operator transmitted an uncoded emergency message. Device active. Experiencing severe instrument malfunction. All compasses spinning. Altitude uncertain. Position unknown. Visibility 0. Attempting emergency shutdown of device 17. Then static. Then something worse. The last confirmed transmission from the Obsidian came at 22:14 GMT. The audio quality was severely degraded, interrupted by strange harmonic interference. Commander Ashford's voice, strained but controlled, device cannot be powered down. Electromagnetic surge building. Crew experiencing disorientation. We are descending. God help us, we are... The transmission cut off mid-sentenced. Search aircraft dispatched immediately encountered the same storm system. Visibility was less than 50 feet. Radio communications were impossible. The cyclone's electromagnetic interference was so severe that compasses became useless. It was as if the Arctic itself had conspired to swallow the expedition whole. The Obsidian's last known position was approximately 87.3 degrees north, 15.7 degrees east, deep within the Arctic Ocean, hundreds of miles from the nearest land. The ice conditions in that region were treacherous: pressure ridges, open leads of freezing water, and constant movement. If the airship had crashed there, the ice itself would have been both grave and evidence. Within days, an international rescue operation launched. British, American, and Norwegian vessels converged on the search area. Aircraft scoured the ice. Radio operators listened for any signal. The world held its breath, but the Arctic is vast and the storm had covered any tracks. The search would continue for months. Early search flights reported no visual contact. The storm had created a landscape of chaos. Shattered ice, snowdrifts 50 feet high, and constantly shifting conditions. If the Obsidian had come down, the evidence would have been quickly buried or swept into the ocean through ice fractures. Still, the searchers pressed on. 3 weeks into the search, a Norwegian expedition discovered the first tangible clue. A section of aluminum framework, clearly from an airship, partially embedded in an ice ridge. The metal showed signs of extreme stress and unusual heat damage. More disturbing, the fragment was found nearly 40 miles from the Obsidian's last known position. Radio operators monitoring the search frequencies reported something unprecedented. A faint, repeating signal on the Obsidian's emergency frequency. Not Morse code, not voice. A pulsing electromagnetic signature that matched no known transmission protocol. Engineers who analyzed the recording described it as impossibly regular and not produced by any conventional radio equipment. Over the following months, search teams recovered scattered debris across a 30-mile radius. Sections of framework, pieces of engine cowling, fragments of hydrogen cell fabric, but nothing that could definitively explain the catastrophe. And strangely, no trace of the crew, Device 17, or the airship's main gondola structure. Modern analysis of the recovered fragments reveals troubling anomalies. The metal shows molecular restructuring consistent with exposure to extremely powerful electromagnetic fields, far stronger than anything that should have existed in 1927. Some samples display magnetization patterns that remain inexplicable to materials scientists even today. The official investigation concluded that the Obsidian suffered catastrophic structural failure during the storm. The theory: extreme wind stress compromised the aluminum framework. Hydrogen cells ruptured, and the airship broke apart in midair. The crew likely perished instantly. The debris scattered across the ice. A tragic but explicable accident. This theory is supported by meteorological records confirming unprecedented storm conditions. The polar cyclone generated wind speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Temperatures dropped to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Ice formation on the airship's structure would have added thousands of pounds of weight. Under such conditions, structural failure becomes almost inevitable. But a darker theory emerged almost immediately. Device 17 represented a massive strategic advantage. Several foreign intelligence services had attempted to infiltrate the project. What if the Obsidian wasn't lost to weather, but to sabotage? An agent on board, a timer, a device designed to destroy the airship, and ensured Device 17 never completed its mission. Declassified intelligence documents reveal that at least 3 foreign powers had active operations targeting the Obsidian Expedition. Soviet intelligence files reference Operation Arctic Silence. German industrial espionage reports mention neutralization protocols. One American agent assigned to crew vetting disappeared 3 days before launch and was never found. The disappearance nearly triggered an international diplomatic crisis. British officials accused rival powers of sabotage. Counter-accusations flew. The League of Nations convened emergency sessions. The investigation into possible foul play lasted for years, but produced no definitive proof, yet the suspicion never fully disappeared. The most extraordinary theory focuses on Device 17 itself. What if the electromagnetic surge mentioned in the final transmission wasn't a malfunction, but the device operating exactly as designed, but at a power level its creators never anticipated? What if, under extreme Arctic magnetic conditions, it generated forces that contemporary science couldn't have predicted? Some researchers have proposed that Device 17 might have inadvertently created a localized electromagnetic vortex, a phenomenon that wouldn't be theoretically described until decades later. The unusual magnetization of recovered debris, the strange radio signal, the crew's reported disorientation, all potentially consistent with exposure to an extreme electromagnetic event. The most controversial theory suggests Device 17 opened something that shouldn't have been opened, a tear in the fabric of space itself. Proponents point to the crew's final words, "God help us," and the impossible dispersal pattern of the debris. Critics dismiss this as pseudoscience. But the question remains, where did the main gondola go today? Researchers continue to investigate the Obsidian mystery. Advanced ice-penetrating radar has mapped the crash site region. Electromagnetic surveys have detected unusual readings. And that strange repeating signal, it's still transmitting. Fainter now, but detectable on the correct frequency at the correct time of year. In Longyearbyen, where the Obsidian began its final flight, a memorial stands. 12 names are engraved in bronze. "Lost to the North," reads the inscription. Their sacrifice advanced human knowledge, but it's the last line that haunts visitors, still searching for home. Why was the debris field so widely scattered? Why does the recovered metal show impossible magnetization? Where is the main gondola structure? Where are the bodies? And most disturbing of all, what is generating that repeating radio signal, and why has it never stopped transmitting? Radio engineers have studied the signal for decades. It's not random. It's not natural. It pulses at precise 47-second intervals, the same number as the airship's designation. Some believe it's Device 17, still operational somewhere beneath the ice. Others think it's a technological echo, a ghost in the electromagnetic spectrum. No one knows for certain. The Arctic keeps its secrets. Somewhere beneath the ice, in the darkness and the cold, lie the answers to the Obsidian mystery. Until technology or chance reveals them, we're left with fragments of metal, fragments of transmissions, and the haunting image of 12 men sailing into the unknown, carrying a device that might have been their salvation or their doom. The signal continues, and somewhere in the eternal Arctic night, the Obsidian waits to be found.